Have you ever felt like dating has gotten a lot harder in your 30s? You might be feeling like your best years are behind you, fewer opportunities to meet women, a social circle that has dwindled, and it might even feel like you're wanting something deeper in terms of a relationship, but you're running out of time to find a quality girl. It's easy to let thoughts like those mess with your head, and it might seem like things are only getting tougher. But here's the thing, your 30s can actually give you a huge advantage if you know how to capitalize on them. So in this video, I'm breaking down some key truths about dating in your 30s. And when you understand these, you can flip that feeling of running out of time into having the upper hand over most guys around you. And let's start off on a more encouraging, positive note and talk about some of the major benefits to dating in your 30s that makes it such a powerful age range to be dating in. Because I know some guys out there feel cynical about dating in their 30s or like time is running out to find a quality girl, but there's far more upside to dating in your 30s than you may realize. The first is that you are further along in life than the average guy in his 20s, both physically and mentally. I remember a friend told me that something clicks in your mind when you turn 30 that changes things in a good way, and it's actually better than being in your 20s. At the time, I didn't really understand what he meant by that, and I honestly wasn't looking forward to leaving my 20s, but now being into my 30s, I can honestly say that he was right. And so far, if I had to freeze myself in time, I'd actually freeze myself at this age rather than in my 20s. The benefits in terms of confidence, self-assurance, experience, ability, and wisdom outweighs any of the youthful benefits of being in my 20s, and you'll likely notice the same with your own life. If you catch the attraction of a woman in her 20s and you've taken care of yourself physically, sometimes it can actually be a situation where it just feels like shooting fish in a barrel because you completely overshadow and crush her options around her own age. On the surface from afar, a 25-year-old guy might catch a girl's attention because of the similarity in age and he may be good looking or whatever, but that 25-year-old is in severe danger if that woman gets to interact with you and feels the difference in masculinity and experience and you've taken care of yourself physically. It's hard for a younger guy to outshine you when you look at everything holistically in terms of personality, experience, lifestyle, and capability. Typically, the only thing he may have an advantage with is his looks. But again, if you took care of yourself, that can even be negated. Many of you in your 30s watching this will also have your own place, which many guys in their 20s are struggling to do in this economy. And on top of that, I know many of you have the income to also travel and go to cool events and do cool things, so that only boosts your perceived value even more. But with that said, be careful to not get caught in some sugar daddy loop either though, where you're leading with money to try and attract women, because that can be tempting for some of you guys once you start feeling like you have that financial power on your side. The other benefit to having more money is you have more flexibility to consistently upgrade yourself. If there's cosmetic work you're interested in, like a hair transplant or maybe some other expensive procedures, you can afford those. You can also afford to invest in a nice wardrobe, participate in a variety of valuable hobbies, hire mentors and coaches, or go to the best gym and get the best trainer, etc. You gain a lot more flexibility to increase your overall value. So the base idea in your 30s is that you want to leverage your experience, your wisdom, and your career success to boost your value and then present that image to more women more often to reap the benefits of the options you're able to generate. And you're also at an age range where you're still young enough to date women in their 20s, but also women in their 30s and 40s if you want to. There's a wide range of options and you're in a much stronger position than you were in your 20s if you go about things correctly. But now let's talk about some of the obstacles you'll have to navigate with dating in your 30s. So one of the first big changes as you head into your 30s is things just aren't like they used to be in terms of your exposure to women. Guys that are in that age range of 18 to 25 have it easy in the sense that it is fairly simple to be around attractive women frequently if you're going to school, and especially if you're living on campus. And if there's someone that age watching this video for some reason and you're living on campus at college, bro, you should be absolutely going berserk developing your skills with women on a daily basis while you have the opportunity, because it takes more effort after college to get that same exposure to attractive girls on a regular basis. But anyway, back to the guys in their 30s. The first thing to really solve for is correcting the exposure issue by putting yourself in situations where you are around women more often, and if you're really trying to maximize your dating life and hit a new level, you need to be around them as much as possible and build up your social opportunities. You really have to be the one that makes things happen socially. So start with the simple things and adjusting the things that you already do to optimize your exposure to women. If you work remotely, go do some of your work at a busy coffee shop during a busy part of the day and make conversation with women while you're there. If you're in an environment that has a lot of people around, take an extra 20 minutes before you get there or on your way out to strike up some conversations and run some approaches. It should be fairly easy since you're already in that area, so make the most of your time. And also start asking yourself, where do attractive women tend to hang out in your city? What social events are going on? What hobbies can you get involved in? Now, one really important thing I wanted to mention here was also utilizing online methods to get even more exposure. So think dating apps and Instagram, and my personal method is using dating apps, Instagram paired with Social Circle, because these methods combined create a really powerful synergy that is far more efficient, and the amount of attractive women that you can get exposure to with online methods is absolutely insane. Because you get access to women that you would never run into otherwise and are far outside of your social circle and your everyday life. And you can even get exposure to women in other cities or even states if you want to go that far. And the thing is that most guys have an exposure problem, so the more positive exposure you get, the better your results will be. And that doesn't mean to not approach or start conversations with girls that you find attractive, because you should be doing that. But relying on that as a sole source of getting dates is going to be really inefficient. And most guys in their 30s don't have time to just sit there and do that for hours and hours. Finding enough attractive women who are actually single and open to dating is going to be the first challenge. Then actually getting good at approaching them is going to be the second challenge. And then the conversion rate of actually getting dates with those women is going to be in the single digits in terms of percentage. So there's going to be a lot of inefficiencies with that. And if you're a guy in your 30s, that's going to be a huge pain in the ass to deal with on a regular basis. However, the skills and the confidence that you gain from approaching women cannot be understated. The benefits are massive and they carry over to everything else. But online methods and Social Circle are going to be far more efficient methods for getting dates consistently. And the more dates that you can get consistently means the more options that you have, and the more options that you have increases your chances of finding a quality girl to have a relationship with, if that is your goal. And if that's not your goal, then the more options the better, right? So anyway, work on your online presence and optimizing your dating profiles, your Instagram, and building up your social circle and staying active in it, because it will pay dividends, and the efficiency is much higher than having to just rely on cold approach as your sole source of getting dates. And if you want my help to get much better results online and to show you how to synergize that with your social circle, then check out the first link in the description. But with that said, let's get back to the video. There's more to it, but in general, after college, you have to take more of a strategic approach to get exposure and momentum on your side. So it will take deliberate effort and going about it in a methodical way. But that effort has a high reward if you do it, because most other guys won't, and they will let their social and dating life fade as they continue to age. Now, in a similar vein of letting your social life fade, a lot of guys will tend to let themselves fade in general as they age into their 30s. But this is a choice that you can make. It's not something that just happens to you. You don't have to fade. And this is where things like having a good muscular athletic physique, having good style and grooming, and an interesting lifestyle tends to really separate you from other guys. And that effect only amplifies as time goes on into your 40s, 50s, and beyond. And I can't tell you how many guys have tried to push their mediocre mindset onto me by saying things like, oh dude, things start to really change in your 30s. You can't eat the same anymore, and you really start to feel those aches and pains. Or I actually knew one guy who said that he had a gut because he was entering his 30s and his metabolism just wasn't the same anymore. But assuming that you're healthy to start with, this is all just nonsense and justification of mediocrity. There was actually a study that showed that your metabolism doesn't actually start to slow down until your 60s. And even then, it's at a rate of less than 1% per year. I'm actually in better shape now than I was in my early 20s, and I'm far better at programming my training in the gym, my cardio is way better, and I'm much more skilled at jiu-jitsu. And I have a much stronger sense of what works for me in terms of style and grooming than I did years ago. Everything gets better in your 30s, but only if you put in the active effort to make sure things get better. And if you do, you'll fly past all the other guys that think it's natural to start declining in your 30s, and that alone will open up a world of options with women around you, because you'll be a rare man in your age bracket. Another thing you'll probably notice as you leave your 20s and head into your 30s is that your taste in women in terms of age largely hasn't changed much. On average, at least from speaking with a lot of you guys on coaching calls, you probably still want to date women younger than you, and a lot of the time that means women in their 20s. So that is something that you'll have to solve for as well in terms of the environments that you put yourself in and the image that you project. What I've also seen from talking to some of you guys is that dating younger women can sometimes create an awkwardness in your mind that makes you feel insecure about dating a younger woman, and you might be worried that they might think that you're too old or not relatable. But this can be overcome with the right mindset and approach to life. If you want to date younger women, there's a fine balance you have to strike where you embrace your age and experience and don't act like a child, yet you still keep a youthful mind to where you don't age yourself prematurely and come off like a dork or an outdated dad who doesn't keep up with trends. I'm a big believer in continuing to progress your knowledge, your maturity, and experience, but balancing that by also having exposure to younger crowds of people and keeping up on current trends and cultural aspects that prevent you from from sounding outdated like someone's grandpa. This pays dividends if you want to date women in their 20s, and you can fulfill that role of being the older masculine leader who is aware of social and cultural norms that are relevant to the younger women that you're dating, and you don't come off weird and older than you actually are. Again, it's a fine balance, but one of your strongest weapons at any age is to be perceived as being cool. If women think you're cool, you already have a huge advantage over many guys because most guys aren't perceived that way. And there's a variety of ways to be perceived as cool, but keeping a youthful mind and spirit about you is a major one. Keep in mind that no one has ever thought a person who aged themselves prematurely was cool, so it will only work against you if you're like a lot of other guys and want to date younger women. And even if you date women around your age or older, it's always a plus to have that cool aura to you that is up to date on things and doesn't come across like someone who's just completely outdated. Now, branching off the previous point, another skill you'll want to adopt in your 30s is the ability to appeal to various women across different ages, and there's a way to do this without sacrificing your own authenticity or being fake. The primary thing to keep in mind is that younger women in their early to mid-20s tend to respond better to stoking imagination, spontaneity, fun, and fantasy. If they're a fun girl to be around, many of them will have that optimistic sense of romance and fun to them that isn't jaded or corrupted by the traumas and disappointments of life. There's girls in their 30s who have that sense of optimism to them too, and they can be a lot of fun to be around. But you'll also come across more women who have dealt with trauma from relationships that has affected their outlook in a negative way. However, the upside to women in their 30s is that they'll usually have a more mature outlook in general, so there is a trade-off. Also, as we age in general as humans, we tend to lose some of that playfulness we had when we were younger, so you'll tend to notice a natural drop-off in general, but that negative drop can be increased even more in the women that have been through some really bad stuff with exes. So you have to understand what each age range will tend to value in a man and have the ability to oscillate between different strengths of yours depending on who you're talking to. If you're dating a girl who is 24, you're likely going to stoke her attraction by embracing more of that fun, optimistic, playful side and being spontaneous and adventurous with them. If you're dating a woman who is 34, having fun is still important because she's going to be used to dealing with dudes who bore her to death, but also realize that girls in that age range are also going to have more appreciation for your intellect, ambition, and the traits that make you more of a stable option than a guy in his 20s. Keep in mind that this is a general overview and the tip of the iceberg, so don't get it twisted and think that I'm saying to sit there and ramble on about your 401k with a girl who is 34, or to never be logical with a 24-year-old girl and just always be this wild, crazy, spontaneous guy. It's about being able to go in both directions effectively, but understanding that women will perceive you differently as you age, and that can be a strength if you play your cards right, or a severe drawback if you don't understand your demographic. And let's expand a bit more on one of the biggest potential drawbacks if you don't understand the game that you're playing. This one applies primarily to younger women, and I want to touch on this because a lot of guys I talk to want to date women in their 20s, which can be fun, but also bad if you don't know what you're doing. The critical concept to understand with dating younger women when you're in your 30s is that you are under a magnifying glass due to your age. If you're a 35-year-old guy dating a 25-year-old woman, one of the major reasons she will be attracted to you is the fact that she looks up to you as a masculine figure that can lead her confidently. That's one of the major advantages that you have over a 25-year-old guy who hasn't developed as much as you have. The potential problem with that is that the expectations are high. You're really expected to be that guy that can lead her and has that iron frame and masculinity. You are a romantic partner to her, but the leadership factor is also magnified due to the age gap. You're really expected to be the protector and leader that knows what to do and knows how to handle every situation, and that can be a lot of pressure to handle if you're not ready for it. Many guys screw this up by acting in ways that lowers their perceived value and starts to bring them down more and more in the woman's eyes, and that perceived value falls off a cliff more easily due to the age gap. Again, it goes back to the delicate balance that I spoke of before. You want to be able to embrace some of the positive traits that someone in their 20s finds attractive and fun, but you absolutely want to avoid the negative traits that someone in that age range would display. So this includes things like losing emotional control, being overly sappy and smothering her, and demonstrating any indecisiveness or weakness. If you want to play the game of pulling younger women, you have to have a titanium demeanor that is built to handle it, and understand that you will have very little room to slip up. The same things that make you more attractive than someone her age are the exact things that you are expected to uphold with absolute strength and consistency. If you don't, you will quickly plummet in value in her eyes, and the benefits of dating an older man begin to fade away. One more thing I wanted to mention about dating younger women is that it's critical you never show any insecurity about an age gap. You should just assume the position that it's completely normal and handle it smoothly. Another thing to add here is, in a recent video, I said that you have to be careful where you draw a woman's focus, and this is another one of those areas to be conscious of. If a woman asks how old you are and you say something like, "Oh, a lot older than you," it's going to draw focus in a negative way when it actually wouldn't be that big of a deal if you just owned it. So you really have to carry yourself like it doesn't even exist and project confidence. Don't draw negative attention to the age difference between you two or act like it's a big deal, because a lot of the time it's not actually a big deal to the girl. It just becomes a big deal because you're making a big deal out of it. That also includes speaking to her in a way that doesn't amplify her younger age either. You don't want to treat younger women like they're a kid, because that will reflect back badly onto you and also interrupt any connection that you are building with that woman. And I've seen guys do this with how they'll talk down to a younger woman sometimes. But beyond that, even if a girl teases you about being older, which is likely to happen at some point whether you're dating casually or not, you have to handle it with pure confidence and remain completely unaffected by it. Never draw attention to the age gap or show any signs of being affected by anyone's perception of it. You have to handle the situation as if it doesn't even exist, and that will also help you to maintain that more youthful mindset in a beneficial way, because you're not focusing on age, and instead you're focusing on interacting on a genuine human-to-human level. Now, of course, not every guy in his 30s wants to date a woman in her 20s, because sometimes it can feel like the gap in maturity and experience is just too wide. And sometimes I'll see comments where guys say things like, "Women hit the wall at 30, bro. We aren't trying to date those washed up women. We want women in their prime and in their early to mid 20s. And I get the sentiment and the idea behind that, along with the biological clock that is ticking, but you're also going to leave a lot of beautiful, fun women on the table if you're not open to girls around your age too. And I've had numerous clients state that they get annoyed with certain aspects of dating women in their 20s and want someone more on their level mentally. So this is worth addressing. For example, one of the biggest drawbacks you'll run into with some women in their early to mid 20s is that they'll have the attention span of a goldfish and more shallow, immature aspirations or ignorant views of the world. And that can grind on your nerves and chip away at your patience depending on who you are and your preferences, even if those girls are hot. Because shockingly, being hot doesn't solve everything, especially if you've dated plenty of hot girls and you start to see past that superficial layer. But earlier I also spoke about some of the potential downsides of dating a woman who is in her 30s or older, but it's going to vary depending on that woman's life experience and how she processed some of those hardships that she went through in life. Some women will just become bitter and cynical, and those are the ones that you want to avoid. But then there's other women who will be more introspective and have the ability to think on a deeper level that has allowed them to keep that sense of optimism while also becoming more down to earth and relatable. I find that those women also tend to keep themselves in good shape physically and be more ambitious in terms of career and aspirations to explore life in general, and they can be fun to date. So the equation isn't as simple as, oh, she's 30 and she's hit the wall and she's useless. That's just very narrow-minded thinking, and each guy is going to prioritize something different in terms of what they really want at that stage in their life. Just like there's benefits to you being older than a guy in his 20s, there's also certain benefits to dating a woman around your age too, depending on what you want and what you're looking for. And there's pros and cons to both age ranges. But as a busy guy in your 30s, it's also extremely important to be highly efficient with your dating strategy and not waste time, which is why I created a system that is built around leveraging multiple sources to generate more consistent options with attractive women around the clock, while also being far more efficient with your time. So if you want to skip all the guesswork and get this part of your life figured out once and for all, be sure to hit that first link in the description to work with me directly, and I will see you in the next one.